Thank you again, all of you, for joining us this morning. We're very excited to launch this new project very, very soon. I will start recording the meeting, which I think is already being recorded. Then we will set the recording, so all good. Once we finish the meeting, we will upload the video online so everyone can have a look and make sure all tenderers have the same information to consider before submitting their proposal. So today we've got Brad Giddens, the head of National Rail Skills Reform, who will be talking to you about this exciting project. So I'll leave the microphone over to Brad, and then we'll have some time for Q&A in the end.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning for this Q&A session around an upcoming RFT that's in the market now. It is an exciting piece of work for us as the National Transport Commission seeks to accelerate timeframes to standardisation and harmonisation of national railway systems in efforts to harmonise the ways of working across our various rail operations in the country. This particular piece of work is really focused on leveraging AI technologies and emerging technologies to shine a light on some of the industry's challenges and issues that have been plaguing the national rail industry for decades now. And it's about...
One second. Can people hear Brad? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, all good. Because we had one participant saying they couldn't. So all good then. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. No drama at all. So I might share a slide deck. I will just mention that as we move through this this slide deck, we'll move quickly to the question and answer section of the presentation, just noting that we've only got 30 minutes together. If for whatever reason there are questions that are raised through this particular meeting that we're unable to answer, I'll take them on notice and direct them back through Transport Secretariat to answer, and then we'll be able to publish to everybody who's attending this call today, and also post those questions on the on our website for further reference. Okay, right. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we also extend that respect to any Aboriginal elders and emerging leaders that may be joining with us on this call today. So in terms of the project background, for those of you who may be familiar with the work of the NTC, we're leading national rail reform to make rail simpler, safer and better across our national railway systems to increase efficiency and productivity opportunities as we implement a national network of interoperability across the national system. And the National Rail Action Plan is a key focus and piece of work that is driving harmonisation and standardisation of our national rail reform agenda. For this particular project piece, as I've already mentioned, across our national rail systems, and as a direct legacy and result of federation, we have had disparate railway operations develop over the last 100 years, which aren't interoperable. Different technologies, different ways of working, different training regimes have meant that we have got a disconnected and disparate system that needs to be harmonised as much as we possibly can through different governance arrangements and legislative reform. So we're looking at making changes to the Rail Safety National Law in terms of strengthening training requirements on behalf of the rail education ecosystem to ensure that mutual recognition of competencies are achieved across the national system, and when rail safety workers arrive at another organisation or cross jurisdictional state boundaries and borders, that their competencies are recognised and acknowledged, and the burden of training doesn't fall back on those rail safety workers to actually retrain in the same training content again. We know that operating rules across our different rail networks does increase the burden on rail safety workers, particularly for drivers, maintenance workers, and train crews that traverse multiple jurisdictions. So we're really keen to hear how AI technologies and other emerging technologies may be able to assist the rail industry by running a comparison between commonalities and differences so that we can shine a light on where there might be opportunities to harmonise different operating rules, different training products and programs, and different draft digital train control technology rules so that we can make sure that we are not repeating the sins of the past in terms of keep running our railway systems as individual organisations and not focusing on the national interest in terms of supporting interoperability. So in terms of the scope for this particular project, you will have all seen, no doubt, our RFT, or have a copy of the RFT, but we are really, in terms of proof of concept, looking to explore the applicability of AI solutions to accelerate our timeframes to harmonisation of rail operating rules, or as we're terming them, common operating rules. You may also be aware that Safely Access the Rail Corridor is a unit of competency that sits within the TLI training package. It is a foundational unit of competency for our industry. For those of you who may have had some exposure to the construction and civil construction industry, it's the rail industry's equivalent of the construction white card. It is a foundational ticket that you need to hold to be able to access any rail corridor in the country. We need to do a gap analysis of this particular unit of competency and training program because we have got so many different versions of this course across the country that we need to run a comparison and do an analysis to determine what is same versus what is different so that we can try to land the national industry on common agreement as to what a common version of SARC looks like moving forward. Would also, through this piece of work, like to explore the cost implications of introducing a potential AI technology to the broader rail industry moving forward and or leveraging an existing tool. And through that analysis, explore potential barriers, challenges, or opportunities to implementing AI technologies within the rail industry. Alongside of that, we're also keen to flush out what potential risks and benefits of a proposed technology solution might look like for the rail industry. In terms of key deliverables, We would like to run an analysis of safe working rules, and we will certainly be able to work with the winning proponent of this particular piece of work by supplying them with relevant background information, data sets and documents that we have worked up through previous project phases of our reducing the regulatory burden for rail safety workers. We will look to supply the winning proponent with different versions of safe working rules, and we will be also looking to run a comparison with RISB's Australian National Harmonised Rules as part of that piece of work. Once again, we'll provide all of those data inputs to crunch through the AI engine. Alongside of that, many of you may already be aware that we are in a prime position to take advantage of new and emerging digital train control technologies that are being rolled out across the country. Those digital train control technologies at the moment, certainly within New South Wales and Queensland, South Australia and WA, the European Train Control Signalling System. And within Victoria, we currently have CBTC, or computer-based train control technologies, operating in certain areas of the Victorian network. But there is a commitment on behalf of all Australian governments to move towards one digital train control technology along the national network of interoperability. And that does mean that we have great opportunities to harmonise and standardise the way we work. What we will be looking to do is, as part of this project, the other scope piece will be to take a selection of draft ETCS draft network rules and run them through the LLM engine to run a comparison again across different jurisdictional draft rules to run the comparison to see where we've got similarities versus differences, so that when we take that information forward to a configuration control board that sits within the National Transport Commission, we can clearly identify where different states and jurisdictions are aligned versus where they may be diverging, so that we can head that off to make sure that we don't repeat previous behaviours where we see a break of gauge across the country moving forward. So that'll be another piece. And finally, I think I've already spoken to this in terms of running an analysis of safely access the rail corridor, the training package. We will probably look at 4 or 5 different versions of SARC to again pull into the LLM to run that comparative analysis. So again, we can hold up to industry where they've got commonality versus differences, so that we can accelerate timeframes to getting national agreement to a common training foundational product for the industry. In terms of our timeline for this project, you can see up here, it's quite an aggressive timeframe in terms of delivering those 3 previous outputs by the end of June. Clearly, we will support the winning proponent with everything that we can. We've got a concurrent project out that is currently being led with our consulting partner Jacobs. There may be opportunities as some draft information comes through for that project to leverage into this particular project, but we will certainly ensure that we are coordinating with other areas of the National Rail Action Plan to ensure that this is successful in terms of those outputs. We appreciate that it is quite turnaround on this, and this is why we are also requesting through the RFT that we are looking at existing LLM models that are already built. We appreciate there may be some level of tweaking or customization that may be required, but we're not looking at building a LLM model from the ground up as part of this current RFT. In terms of our procurement timeline, you can see up here on the screen, we are moving quite rapidly through this process in accordance with our procurement governance arrangements. We note that this particular submission close date is on the 14th of March, quite an aggressive timeframe there. Apologies in advance for that, but we are working to some very strict requirements in terms of outputs to help us inform our potential recommendations to infrastructure transport ministers by December of this year, and the information that is delivered as part of this particular RFT will go some way in helping form our future recommendations, thus the tight turnaround times here. I might leave it there and throw open to Q&A. Please, I invite any questions from the room.
Emma, you've got your hand up.
Hi, thanks for sharing. Just a quick question. What's your current technology stack you would be working on?
That's a great question. I will need to take that on notice. I don't know.
Do you suggest that we already have a tool that we're using and we want to use something else, or can you elaborate a bit more to understand your question?
So if you already have, for example, cloud infrastructure, what's your cloud? Do you have a data platform or any other technology that could be leveraged as part of this?
We can take that on notice and we can discuss with our IT team to understand exactly what you're looking for. But if you want to send us a few more clarifications on this, because currently we are working on SharePoint, if that's what you mean, but the data will be accumulated from different sources. So there's no existing database to tap into, if that's what you mean. But I'm happy for you to send us some more details on that question, and then we can check it with the position.
Great, thank you.
As you can understand, we're not the IT expert.
Sorry, Emma. No.
Any other hands? Simon?
Hi there. Yeah, for the inputs that are to be analysed in the various different studies that you've mentioned, what format are these in? Are they all PDF? Are there Word documents available? Anything else?
Excel documents, PowerPoint presentations. Yes, certainly in terms of the safely access the rail corridor piece, Simon will request, potentially we could get, and I don't know, again, the capabilities of AI tools to read SCORM files in terms of e-learning resources. But again, we'll work with the winning proponent to ensure wherever possible, we can get copies of information in accessible file formats for you.
Thank you.
Chris?
Thank you. So a lot of this work is about analysis and finding gaps and similarities. Are you also looking for any recommendations based on this, or simply an analysis of what you've got?
An analysis and recommendations.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Great question. Thanks, Chris.
Tyler?
Yeah, you mentioned the two leading technologies currently in signaling, like CBTC and ETCS. Do you expect two different streams in that comparison, or do you want to have a kind of an overall general, I don't know, I'm not sure what role CBTC would play on the national role. It's rather ETCS instead of CBTC, but I'm not sure how that goes together.
Yeah, sorry. Great question, and thank you for raising it. I probably should just clarify that Victoria has actually commissioned CBTC on their Melbourne Metro Tunnel project, for those of you that may be aware of it. But there is a commitment on behalf of the Victorian government to move towards, certainly for the network of national interoperability, towards ETCS as well. So we wouldn't be asking the winning proponent to do a comparison between CBTC and ETCS. It's more about running a comparison on draft ETCS network rules between the jurisdictions of New South Wales and Queensland. Because what we're trying to do there is head off any rules being approved that may be different between those different networks, and then seeing a break of gauge across state borders.
Any other questions from anyone? Can't see any hands up. Simon?
Yeah, hi again. Sorry, just to be clear on the deliverables, are the actual gap analyses as output by running things through the LLM. There's no delivery of the capability itself for further use by CTC.
Correct. Chris.
Thanks again. So you talked a bit about delivery, the cost implications of AI on the rail industry. This is basically this is basically analysing what you've got and some recommendations based on the training and regulatory burdens and things. What are you looking for AI to do in the future, or do you want us to present a vision of that as well?
Look, thought leadership in this space would be most welcome in terms of where you think best practice is. Ultimately, under one of our other NRAP deliverables, we are looking at major overhaul of governance arrangements for the national railway system. Part of that may involve the use of AI technologies to help to govern common operating rules into the future, making sure that we don't have a divergence in terms of national ETCS network rules into the future. And so potentially an AI technology may sit with a regulator or a standards body or some organisation that will have responsibility for governance and oversight of these types of functions and processes into the future. So any information that might be able to help inform, what it might look like to stand up this sort of technology within a regulatory function of the future, etc., would be beneficial.
Understood. Thank you. That's great.
Justin, we saw you had your hand up before. Do you have a similar question?
I did. Thank you. It's a bit of a similar question to Chris's, and hello, everyone. You spoke about inputs, Excels, PowerPoints, potentially SCORM packages, Bradley. What are the outputs you would be after? So where are you going to use this information? What would you expect to take to your boards? What is the audience?
Yeah, great question. So it's probably multiple stakeholders that we will take this and play these sort of outputs back to. Certainly for the training program around safely access the rail corridor. Our peak industry body, the Australian Railway Association, is a key stakeholder in this, along with the rail infrastructure managers, the rail organisations and operators, and obviously commercial RTOs and the Department of Education. So there are multiple stakeholders that will be I suppose, sharing the outputs and results of this particular piece of work. There is synergistic alignment with the current piece of work that our Jobs and Skills Council, ISA, are leading in relation to mutual recognition of rail competencies across the national rail system. So they will be very interested in the outputs of Safely Access the Rail Corridor, because it will feed into their project in terms of some of their key deliverables that they're leading on behalf of the rail industry. In terms of the ETCS draft network rules piece, clearly government RIMs across the country and ministers are absolutely committed to a national network of interoperability. And so from a coordination perspective, we want to make sure that any rules, standards or principles that are being designed in terms of ETCS pathway for the country are coordinated and aligned to ensure that, again, we don't have a break of gauge in the country moving forward. So we'll be leveraging that information through technical committees within our NTC governance structures and frameworks to feed that information up to chief engineers across the country to ensure that we've got synergistic alignment in terms of our operating rules moving forward in terms of our national rail networks. I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, thank you, Bradley.
Pleasure.
Any other questions from anyone? We've still got a couple of minutes left.
Just a question, probably not directly related to this, but just for the future, then you get this information, some recommendations, and a vision. The next stage of the vision. What sort of time frame do you think? If you were to want to stand all of this up and implement it, is this likely to be something you want to change the rail industry with overnight, which I suspect is not, but or is it something which is going to be 10 years in the making?
Chris, it's a great question. It's certainly not going to be 10 years in the making. We will be moving at great haste in terms of legislative reform and harmonised reform. This current piece of work represents a 4-year funded program on behalf of Australian governments. Just to give you some sort of appreciation of where we are on that journey, we're halfway through. So the direct outputs of this particular project, along with another program of work that I'm currently leading, will inform key recommendations to transport infrastructure ministers this December in terms of our reform agenda. And we are hoping that through our governance arrangements that we will have a positive response from infrastructure transport ministers at our December meeting, and we will move quite quickly to implement once we've been given approval.
Thank you.
Perhaps one last question from PH.
Morning, everybody. Morning, Bradley. Quick one. This 10 weeks. This 10 weeks time frame is pretty short for the for the challenge that's ahead. You can clearly see two elements of one is the analysis and providing recommendation, and the other one is trialing AI. What is the main goal in 10 weeks? Because there's a vast body of documents and technical content that is to be analyzed to provide meaningful recommendation, where at the same time proving that this could be done somehow with AI. And you've just, in one of the previous answers, you mentioned about rules, but also standards and principles that definitely expands the body of document that would have to be analyzed, and not all of them are either public, or some of them are not even written for the new technology. So just to see a bit of guidance on that.
A great question. Once again, we'll be leveraging our various government networks, committees that operate within the NTC requesting that information. We've already leveraged one of my other projects requesting information in advance from industry stakeholders to be able to provide to this project as well. So we're sort of on the front foot in terms of data collection and information gathering so that we can hit the ground running and we're not waiting from industry and to actually provide us with that information. And it should be, just to note, some of that information we already hold on file here at the NTC.
Okay, look, was not too concerned about accessing the information, but it's the analysis that has to be performed comparing rulebook. You know, if what's important to you is the conclusion of the analysis versus proving that this can be done in AI, it requires very different skill sets of, people involved in the team and backup plan in case AI is not as useful as intended, because there's a very diverse body of information and data, which in 10 weeks, it's got to be challenging for sure.
It's certainly not for the faint-hearted. I do take your point. We have and will also obviously leverage, as I've mentioned previously, there's been extensive analysis already completed in terms of safe working rules. We've already determined through industry consensus in terms of harmonising safe working rules, the first tranche of safe working rules and the 5 supporting actions that need to be in place. Clearly, the Victorian rule book has been an outlier to that previous work, and it'll be something that we look to pull in and run using that LLM function to do an analysis between the work that's gone before in terms of the 9 safe working rule books that have been analysed and compared versus the Victorian network rules, so that we can get an appreciation just in terms of same versus different again. We would also encourage anyone in this meeting and more broadly, if you feel as though there are opportunities to partner with other organisations to strengthen your bid, please feel free to do so. Wherever you think we might receive, a stronger or more comprehensive response, we are more than happy to consider those also.
We're a little bit over time. I see one more hand up from Simon. If it's a quick question, we'll take it. Otherwise, you can send it to us by email.
Thanks. Yeah, hopefully it is quick. So you mentioned the previous studies that had been undertaken and the previous findings. So I was wondering if those would be provided as part of the materials for this work.
Yes, they will.
Great. Also, small question, little follow-up. Is it possible to get a budgetary estimate for this work?
No, we don't. As part of our process, we don't publish the budget for this project, but we're welcoming any proposals. So all proponents are happy. Well, we're happy to consider any proposal that you put forward, and then we'll consider it based on the evaluation criteria. But there's no, we don't publish what the budget is because otherwise everyone will bid at the same price.
Thank you.
No worries. So if that's okay, we will conclude the today's session. Thank you again for making time to join us today and for your interest to this work. I put the key dates in the chat and they're also available on our website. So as a reminder, any questions you want to ask, they need to be submitted via the NRAP Secretariat inbox by the end of the day tomorrow. That's 5 p.m. Eastern Australian time. And then the evaluation panel will consider the questions and provide responses as soon as possible so that you can have those answers available when you're preparing your proposals. And proposals are due on the 14th of March at 5 p.m. Eastern Australian time again. All the information is available on our website. We will publish this recording as well. And we will also do our best to capture the questions and answer being asked today in the recording and in the question and answer document that we will publish. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to email us. Or if there's anything you would like to follow up on these questions, feel free to email us and we will do our best to respond to you as soon as possible. But thank you again and looking forward to reading more from you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
all.
Thank you.
Thanks. Talk soon. Bye.